Big day for contests today. Hey guys, welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace. You can find me on Twitter at AKNacer. Today's all about contests. We're going to announce the contest winner from last week. We got a new way of doing contests, which is what this is all about. It's very exciting, and we're gonna change the way people win contests too, which I'm also really excited about. And I know things keep changing, but we're trying to make them better. We're changing to make them better. So without any further ado, the contest winner from last week is Joel. Congratulations, you got the most likes. I think at this point it's 141. It's awesome, and we're gonna be working on your image today, which I like a lot, and we're gonna do some really cool stuff to it. So here's what we're gonna do from now on. We had the contest basically be popularity contest, where the person with the most amount of likes won. And I like that idea. I thought it was going to be great. And I think it was great for the most part. But I think a couple of people who submitted like very early on, they got a ton of votes and they got a lot of their friends. But say someone visits the page on like the 5th day, they decide to enter the contest on the 5th day, and they're like, well, if I'm only going to get like 10 votes, I'm not even going to enter. So I'm like, well, that kind of sucks. I don't want people to be deterred in that way. So here's what we're going to do. We keep changing it, but I want to make it the best so that everyone can enter. Everyone has the feeling that they can actually win the contest. So we're just going back, and I'm going to pick the winner. That's what it is. And don't worry, I'm not only going to pick the most experienced photographer. We're going to pick the winner based on how well they do the concept. So from here on out, submit your images. You got all week long. Today we're going to announce it, and this is where the contests are. In this little pot here. It's a 70-200 lens hood if you guys are curious. But I'm going to be picking the winner, and I'll be fair, and if you want to yell at me because you didn't win, that's totally fine. I can take it. So let's work with Joel's image today. We're going to do some really cool stuff, and then I'm going to pull, got a little bunch of pieces of paper here. We're going to pull what next week contest is out of this guy. And if you guys have ideas for contests and you want like themes for contests, write them or send them to us in a message, either in a comment below or in the in the contact section above here. However you want to do it, we read all of our stuff, and we'll put it in here too. All right, let's get started with Joel's image. This image is really cool. Last week's contest was all about interaction between 2 or more objects. This is 2 or more people, and I think Joel did an awesome job with this. It's really cool. I mean, you guys are probably, if you've ever photographed a wedding or like done any kind of photograph like this, it's very easy to do the standard just like happy smile of the camera, and I'm really happy that Joel went a step beyond that. Like he had his clients, I'm assuming these are his clients, maybe they're his friends too, you never know, but he had them kind of like do something else that wasn't just like happy and smiling at the camera. There's like kind of like a hide and seek thing, and I think it's fun. It's like totally cute, and that's when it comes to like weddings and doing stuff like this, like you want to get people to like actually get their personality out there. So I really like that about the shot. It's just like I can kind of tell, I can get a sense for their personality. They're a little bit silly, and I definitely like that. So that's really good, and the interaction is great. Some of the things that we're going to work on today, let's just make a new layer, and we'll talk about some of the things that we're going to work on, and then how maybe you can fix them in the camera if you wanted to as well. When you guys are shooting against something with a bunch of straight lines, like we have, the straight lines here for this, the windows and things like that, oftentimes you want to see if you can get the lines to actually be straight. You can see that line's kind of tilting this way, and it can be a little bit distracting if the lines aren't straight in the frame. One way you can do that is to get back. If you step backwards, instead of shooting like anywhere near a wide angle lens, if you shoot with like a telephoto, so maybe here if this was shot at like 200 millimeters straight on, all those lines would be a lot more, they'd be a lot more vertical and horizontal in line with the frame. I don't know if that was possible. There might have been something right behind the photographer. I wasn't here, so I don't know every situation, but that's something you may want to keep in mind. Also, if you're shooting into glass or anything like that, you're going to be getting some reflections. Reflections aren't the worst thing in the world, but if they detract from your subject, you can go ahead and minimize those down. So we're going to show you guys how to do both of those things. We're going to minimize these reflections, we're going to straighten up some lines, and we're going to add some style to the image, and then it's going to be great. Then we're going to announce the contest. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is minimizing these reflections. And I'm just going to choose a brush for this. We're going to grab a brush tool, paint it about 20% flow, and this is going to be really easy. Anyone can do this. All you have to do is hold Alt or Option, which is the sample color, and sample a color, and then I'm just going to kind of paint over some of these areas that are a little bit distracting. Not a big deal. And if you happen to be in the reflection, like let's say you're the photographer in the reflection, you could just use the same technique to just paint yourself out. Like let's say this fence, it was you could just be like, oh, okay, now I'm not there anymore. And because it's out of focus and it's, you know, gonna be a little bit blurry anyway, this is pretty easy to do. I'm not a seasoned painter. I didn't go to school for painting. You're just like sampling some colors and painting around. Making your brush bigger and smaller to kind of add some variation. If there's areas that like, oh my God, I painted over my subject, I shouldn't do that. You just grab your eraser tool, or you can just grab a layer mask, either one, and you know, don't worry too much about it. There we go. And I'm gonna probably lower the opacity here in just a little bit. Let's paint a little bit neater, Aaron. Show the people how real painting is done. Oh man. You must really know how to paint. You can also do some selection things if you would prefer to do that rather than just grabbing your eraser tool. I'm going to show you guys that in a minute. You can do some selections to actually, like, you know, cut out areas like the windows and whatnot. So I don't want to completely get rid of these reflections. I just want to minimize them a little bit. So I'm kind of sampling some colors around here and just painting over. This whole layer, if you want to, you know, if you painted on it too much and it just looks too Photoshoppy, you just reduce your opacity the whole layer if you want to do that. All right, and anywhere you want to paint over you paint it over your subject, just either you can use a layer mask, which I'm going to show you. I'm going to use right now. Just hides what's on the layer. You can use a layer mask, or you can just use your eraser tool. So let's do that, and then we'll do a little bit over here, and then I'll kind of zoom out and kind of just show you guys what the result is from reducing some of these reflections. And I'm going to paint over her hair a little bit. Why not? I'll just use a layer mask to paint it off. There we go. And this is something that you should be doing quick. I mean, really don't spend a long time on this sort of thing because it's not worth it. And if you guys are shooting weddings and things like that, like you know better than anyone that time is definitely always against you. I mean, for a wedding photographer, you're always rushing against deadlines, and it's very stressful. I mean, especially those of you guys who are shooting, you know, 1 to 2 weekends every week, or sorry, yeah, I know a lot of people who shoot back to back. You know, they're shooting a wedding on Saturday night, maybe Friday night, and then another on Saturday night. And they have to edit thousands of pictures and get them to the brides, and it's very stressful. So you want to spend as little time as possible, and that's what I'm trying to do relatively quick here. Okay. So there's our reducing the reflections. You can see it's not, you know, not crazy, but we definitely focus on our subjects a bit more, which is great. Now that we've gotten that in place, I'm going to go ahead and straighten things out, and then I'm going to show you guys some techniques to select out those windows again, and we're going to brighten them up a bit. Okay, so to make your, to straighten everything out, I'm going to make a stamp visible layer. Shift Option Command E, that's going to make a stamp visible. Then just hit Command T, and you want to straighten these lines out. But one thing that kind of helps is if you bring up some guides. So I'm going to hit Command R, which is the same thing as just going to View and then down to Rulers, right over here. And then go over here and just drag a couple guides over onto your image. So just literally go to your ruler and click and drag from the left to the right. And these are called guides. They just guide you. Just let your guide be your guide. There we go. So you can kind of see, you know, what needs to happen to this image. And warping it into place is really not that hard. I'm going to hit Command T on this layer. This is the stamp visible layer. And you can see this line is like closer to there at the bottom and farther at the top. So we're going to hold the Command key and just click here, and I'm going to straighten that out a little bit. And there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing. You can grab each one of these corners if you want to grab a corner. You can grab there in the middle. You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's as long as you get to where it's relatively straight, that's the whole goal here. It really doesn't matter how you get there. Clicking and dragging out in that way. And I might totally suck at it when it's live. But okay, you can see it's getting a little bit better. The vertical lines there, everything is starting to straighten out a little bit more, and yeah, I think we're good, looking good. So I'm going to hit Enter. You can see I just hold down Command and click and drag those things out, so you can kind of see the before and the after. It's going to make your subject a little bit bigger because we had to kind of like warp it out there. I wish it was the guy on this side rather than the girl, because I'm okay with making guys a little bit bigger. Usually you don't want to do that with a girl, just because it's, you know, well, it's just not what you want to do. But for this case, I think it's just fine. I mean, no one looks bad or anything in this photo. I think it still looks great. So we're just going to leave it like that. To get rid of your guides, you can click and drag them off, or you can just hit Command H, and that's going to get rid of your guides there. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys a really cool trick. We're just going to use the Lasso tool here, and I'm on the Polygonal Lasso tool, and I'm going to select out our windows. Let's just go down over here and select that out. Now I'm going to hold the Shift key and select from the top down all the way through. So we're selecting that window out there. Okay, and then we're going to select this window out as well. Now you're probably like, well, why are you selecting, you know, the whole thing out? You got those little areas there. Well, anytime you have like a continuous you know, line that's going to interrupt the selection, what you can do is just make your whole selection and then subtract out areas from your selection. So it's a lot better to do this with like window sills than do each individual, because your squares won't really line up if you try to do, like if your bottom lines are like a little bit off, it's going to look off. So I'm going to hold Alt, and we're just going to click and drag from here to here, and you can see it's going to cover all of them. There we go, and we'll make that selection there, and it just kind of like it takes away all the areas from your selection. All right, so we'll do the same thing here, from there all the way to here, and make that a selection. And if you don't like what you've selected, just hit Command Z, undo it. I might spend a little bit more time on this if it wasn't, you know, for a live tutorial, but I think it looks fine. Okay, so we have our windows selected out. The people are still in the way, but we do have our windows selected out. So what I'm going to do with those, I'm going to go up to my curves, and I'm just going to brighten up those windows quite a bit, because I think it'll look great with the windows lightened up. Okay, so we're lightening up our windows. That looks good, and overall I think I'm going to bring our contrast. Let's just lower our contrast a little bit so we don't have like such deep blacks in the shadows. Lowering your contrast on images like wedding images and things like that oftentimes can just give the image a little bit more of like that film look. Okay, and now what we're doing is I'm going to go in here, and on the layer which I brightened everything up, I'm just going to layer mask out my subjects, because we don't want them brightened. I really wanted the windows bright, but not our subjects. And then I'm going to go do something which is the exact opposite of what I'm doing now, but I'll explain it. All right, and you can be as neat or as not neat with this as you want. Not neat is a word now, by the way. I'm going to show you guys a way to make it so where you don't have to spend a ton of time. And you can see I'm just using the brush tool and kind of grabbing and painting. So in comparison, these people look a little bit too dark now, right? It's like, well, the windows behind them are so bright. Why are they so dark? You know, that's our layer mask. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to bring a little bit of brightness from the windows onto the subjects. So this is our layer mask. We have it visible where the windows are, not visible where our subjects are. We want to paint with white, okay, at about 10% opacity or 10% flow, whichever you like a little better, on a big old brush. Okay, so key here is big brush, and we're not painting a whole lot. So we're going to paint some of this brightness back onto our subjects, but in like a very soft manner. So a large brush, and then I'm just going to kind of paint it on here. There we go. Kind of coming in from the side. So this is our layer mask now. You can see it just kind of like does that, and that's what window light's going to do. It's going to kind of like enter the camera lens and kind of like go around anyway. So if you have like your dress, a little, you know, area that's a little more see-through or something like that, you can go ahead and paint some more visible on there, maybe brighten up the flowers a little bit, and brighten up their faces a little bit as well. So this is what my layer mask looks like now. You can see I just brought a little bit over, but still quite a bit different from what it was before, quite a bit brighter. And you know, for wedding images, personally, I prefer like a nice, bright, happy, fun-looking image. I think that it really works for wedding type images, or you know, any kind of romantic shot. I think the bright really helps. So this is that contrast that I did earlier. Just kind of brought a little more detail into the suit and things like that, which is cool. All right, I'm gonna put a lens flare on there, just do a little bit of stylization. These sort of things don't take long at all, and they can really help with stylizing. So create a new layer, fill it with black, go to filter, we'll go to render and lens flare. Not fibers, who uses fibers? Render, lens flare. It's like, yeah, we need more fibers on this. And once you've done that, change your layer blend mode to screen. Okay, now I want you guys to lower your opacity. Whenever you're doing a lens flare like this, lower your opacity, you know, maybe scale it, put it in the right place, and then we're gonna give it a Gaussian blur as well, so it's not like so in your face. You know, we want this to be more stylization than anything else. We don't want it getting in the way of your subjects. Okay, so we got a nice light source coming from the left there. Okay, now I'm gonna do a little bit of coloring as well, because this is, anytime, again, you guys are doing these romantic type of photos, you know, a little bit of coloring can go a long way, and just brightening things up can go a long way as well. So here in our levels, we're gonna grab red, green, and blue. Let's start with our green channel. We'll just put some greens in our darks. We'll put some blues in there as well. And there we go. We'll put some yellows in there. And a little bit of red. Okay, so a little bit of coloring. This is just too bright, so we're gonna lower the opacity of that a little bit more, that lens flare. Again, you want it to be relatively subtle. And then you can see our coloring here is just kind of putting some colors into your shadow. It makes it look cool. I like that type of image. All right, the last thing we're gonna do is I want everything like bright and happy, shiny over everything. So we're gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna hit Command Delete to fill it with white. And I'm gonna double click on this, and here where it says our layer style, we're gonna use blend if to tell it to not be visible where the underlying layer is darker. So it's only gonna be visible where it's lighter. And you wanna hold down Alt or Option when you're doing this. There we go. And we'll just lower the opacity a little bit. Down about 55%, somewhere around there. And we'll hit OK. Okay, and that's just kind of like brighten up everything. So we just filled it all with white. We told the white not to be visible where the underlying layers are darker. So it's only going to show up in the highlights, and then we just lowered that opacity. So it's just going to brighten everything up right over the top. All right, that's it, guys. And I'll probably just crop this in just a tiny bit. There we go, because we had an issue there with the where we transformed and then it was out of the frame. So awesome. I think this looks great. Let's go ahead and group that together, and we'll show you guys. So there's the before. You can see that perspective change, and you know the shadow, or sorry, the reflections in the windows, and also it just being a little bit dark. And then here's the after. We kind of fix some of that stuff. And looking at this stuff, like if you want to change anything at any point in time, like if that lens flare, you're like, yeah, it sucks, I don't like that at all. You can go in and change these. Like if maybe we made this curves a little bit too light, I can just lower it down a little bit. Because I kind of thought that. I turned it off and on, and I was like, yeah, you know what, maybe that's a little bit too much of an effect. So go in here and, you know, that's like why we use layers. So you can go in here and change, you can change these things at any point in time. There's no rules, it's just layers. There we go. So there's our before, and there's our alter after, and we got rid of some of the reflections. You can still see some of them, which I think is important, but they're a lot less attention getting. You're really gonna focus on your subjects quite a bit more now. Awesome. Well, Joel, that's a great image, and guys, thanks so much for submitting. And our new contest this week, here's what we're doing for the first time ever. I want, I'm gonna, here, check this out. I'm gonna put the microphone right in here so you guys get the full effect. Yeah, you like that? We're picking out of a hat. All right, let's put this back here. Everyone's like, that was incredibly weird what you just did, Aaron. Well, I wanted extra effect. So this is what we picked. I haven't looked at it yet. It's gonna be this week's contest. All right, and we have silhouette. So this week's contest, you guys have until next Monday. So Monday from Monday to, you can take a picture, you can submit something you've already done, silhouette. And that's gonna be something where like the subject or the main character is relatively dark with light behind them. There's awesome possibility here for some really, really great photos. And I know you guys are gonna submit some. I'm really excited about seeing, and I'm gonna pick the winner. That's how things are going. And if you have more ideas for contest guidelines or like other contests you wanna see, tell us and we'll just put them in here. So this week is silhouette. I can't wait to see your guys' entries. They're gonna be awesome, and good luck. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll Phlearn you later. I don't think I spelled silhouette correctly. That's a hard word. I prefer the less common pronunciation, silhouette. I think this word is German or something. I don't quite know. It's spelled all weird.
It's French, not German.
I know. It's totally French.
I think it's Chinese.
It's a Chinese word. Silhouette. It's Chinese. Big day, muy grande. Hoy día es muy grande for el contest. I don't know how to say contest in Spanish. El contesto.